No, but I mean those particular.
Oh, the TDK ones, yeah.
Tips,
I always
yeah.
always stick with these ones.
Yeah.
These red ones or the blue ones. Anyway.
Well, you know, they raised a certain amount. It gave us a few bob more, and I don't think I can't remember the actual amount, but obviously it was always very acceptable. But you know, in today's terms, it was laughable, and it was just, as I say, the early beginnings. Teams who went to the cup final after that, they sort of made a fortune out of it. I mean, you just had to be in one cup final, and there was a fortune in it for just getting there. But that, you know, that angle never occurred to me at all. It was just one of those things that somehow wasn't of any appeal to me. It was just the game, the playing of the game. I suppose I was silly, really, in that sense, that you've got to be practical, and it paid the bills. But at the same time, you know, the football was the only thing that mattered. So, in that sense, I was a sort of chip off Jimmy C. That's maybe why I appreciated him so much.
And also on cup final day, Billy Whittaker became a father.
Yes, I seem to remember something like that. I can't actually remember, but I seem to remember something like that. Yeah. There were lots of these little things. There was always something happening.
Yeah. What about because you paraded the cup through the streets?
Well, there again. I seem to remember us doing that, but it was a sort of half-baked type of thing. I don't know whether we had a double-decker bus or anything like that. I think it was one of Lewis's ordinary coaches. You know, we half did it, and the local population half enthused, but mainly mothers and kids. Just to say the kids didn't run in front of the bus. But it wasn't like a homecoming like Liverpool or like we had here in Leicester when we came back here, and we were up on the balcony of the town hall, and the town hall square's packed, jam-packed. Wasn't like that. I don't know whether Charlton fans just didn't respond to these things, or thought they had something better to do.
Maybe they just expected the team to win the cup.
Or maybe it wasn't an opportune time, I don't know. I just can't remember. You know, there are lots of these sort of things that I don't think they registered with me.
But you became captain. Who did you follow? Did you
Don
follow
Welsh.
You followed Don Welsh.
But then Don Welsh eventually came back. He came back at the semi-final of the cup. That was it the first year or the second year? Second year, wasn't it?
Newcastle's
second year. That's right. Yes, Newcastle was the game, and obviously he took over then. But I found the difficulties arising. We've seen it emphasised in the tests just recently. If David Gower had been captaining Australia, and Alan Border had been captaining England,
different story.
It would have been a different story, yes. So that, you know, captaining a team that's on the wane, you can't expect to make good all the deficiencies. You can't do it just by captaincy. A captain can be inspiring, he can be instructive, he can do the right things in the right places and all that, but he can't make up for all that the team lacks. And he just has to do the best. Same as a manager, he has to do the best with what's at his disposal, especially when it comes to team selection. You can only pick the kind of team that is there to be picked. I know mistakes are made, and sometimes people pull rabbits out of hats, but it isn't the thing you do on a regular basis. So that you find yourself either in the happy position of having a team equipped to do the job, a team that is a team that can be captained, or you have a team that is always going to fall short in spite of anything you might do.
Did Jimmy C tend to stick with one captain until something until something bad went, because Jimmy Oates was captain for a long time?
Yes, that's right.
And Don Welsh was captain for
That's
a
right.
number of years.
Well, when Jimmy Oates was captain, you see, they went from success to success to success in lower divisions. He was only the 1 year in the first division, Jimmy Oates, and he had a good team. And then there was the wartime lapse, and then the after war, as you know, and as far as I remember, Don Welsh was always the captain after the war until he was injured. And as I say, I was captain after that, and then he came
Did Jimmy
back.
C tell you were captain, or did he ask you to be captain?
Oh no, he just sort of said, I would like, and that meant you had to. You know, he didn't brook any protests or anything like that. But your instinct tells you what your experience is going to be as a captain. If you are ready to be a captain, your judgment leads you to make certain assessments. And while, again, you haven't got a crystal ball, you know that if you win anything, or even win the majority of matches, you'll be doing miracles. And it's a very big weight on your shoulders, as David Gowers found.
Did you enjoy it?
You enjoy it, but I never revelled in it, if you understand. I don't know, you could possibly be captain of a team that carries all before it, and really speaking, you haven't a lot to do.
Because in theory, a wing half is one of the busiest men on the field anyway, because you're filling in attack and defence.
That's right.
So you've got your work
at least though, you're always at the centre of what's happening. You're always in touch with what's happening.
Yeah.
But I think Sam would have liked to have been captain, and I don't think he would have made a bad captain, Sam, because, I mean, for a goalkeeper, I don't say that disparagingly, he knew the game, and he knew what was required, and sometimes they're in a very strategic position, though I wouldn't by choice have a goalkeeper as captain. I wouldn't say I never would. But Sam, I think he would have liked to have been captain, but Jimmy Seed I don't think would have had a goalkeeper as captain. Although I think he did at some time or other, but it was after Jimmy Seed, wasn't it? Am I wrong in that? Was it during Jimmy Trotter's time? Did Sam captain the team? I'm not sure.
Sam captains the team once, or at least once.
Sam loved the centre stage.
Yeah.
He was a showman, you know, in every sense. I mean, if you have photographs, unless they're sort of formal photographs with the goalkeeper in the middle at the back, Sam's in the middle at the front. You know, that's how it was. Sam just was Sam, and he was always prominent. And this is how he viewed life, and this is what he liked.
And adored by the fans as well.
Yes, that's right. But he would have loved to have been captain. But the time I ceased to be captain after Don Welsh finished was when I was telling you I had this problem with the stomach, and to this day, mind, if anything ever went wrong with me, and I'm talking about since, it was always something that affected my stomach. Now, I'm not a doctor's man at all. I don't go to the doctor very often, but when I did go to the doctor, and when I did have examinations, it was usually within the compass of the club where I was, and I used the club doctor, and none of them ever could put a finger on anything.
So at Charlton would have been Dr. Montgomery?
Dr. Montgomery. And he sent me to the Shooter's Hill Hospital. I had x-rays. I had all sorts of things, but I remember one year we were going on tour, I don't know where it was to, and I said to Jimmy Trotter, Jimmy, I feel that, you know, I oughtn't to go. I could be a liability, and I said, maybe if I just spend, it was the end of the season, if I just spend the summer at home trying to pull myself together, I might be ready for August again. No, 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 he said, you're coming with us. He said, maybe the warm climate would do you good. And whether it was the warm climate, it did pick me up. It really picked me up to go on this tour. And I started playing on a more regular basis again. Now, in the meantime, I'd played an odd game in the reserves, just to see if I could, you know, I was always wanting to play, this was the thing. And I picked the best time I could have played in the reserves. We won the combination. Now, I hadn't played many games, obviously, but the games I played earned me a cup medal, and nobody was, I didn't know I'd won one. They sent for me to go into the office, and I went into the office, and they said, here's your medal. I said, what for? And they said, winning the combination. And I didn't think I'd played anything like enough games.
Yeah.
So while I was at Charlton, I won everything that the club won. You know.
Very fortunate.
Fluke, huh?
What about superstitions? Were there any players in the team or yourself, as you can recall, any routines they would always go through before match as well?
I don't think there were superstitions. I think it was just habits. Like people would put their stockings and boots on before they would put anything else on. or those silly sort of things. You know? But I can't in particular remember anything.
Yeah. In the dressing room, the pegs were numbered.
Yeah.
But did the numbers correspond to your what shirt?
Yes, yes.
So you didn't have your own peg, irrespective of what position you played?
On a match day, you had your own peg because your kit was all put out for you, and the shirts were hung so that the numbers were showing. So I'm playing number 4 or number 6. I go to number 4 or number 6. That's my place. But I just can't remember. I think the pegs numbered round went on from the one dressing room to the other, and where one left off, the other started. So that every player had his own club number as opposed to his position number. But all the clubs, wherever you went, they always set their shirts out around goalkeeper, full-backs, so on.
Yeah. So you didn't be sort of stripping in order.
That's right, yes. Yes.
What about training? What was the sort of training routine?
Well, of course, I saw a lot of different types of training later on. I can only say our training was hard work. We trained the hard way. It was always slogging. We didn't get too much of the ball. I always believed that it was possible for some players to get enough ball in the week to satisfy their appetites, so that on a Saturday they didn't want it. That was a philosophy with a lot of people in those days. But in the main, we did what was just hard work. We got fit the hard way. We did distance running, we did lapping, we did sprinting, and we did it in a sustained way. We would run down one side, walk round the end, run up the other side, and we'd do this for ages, and every now and again Jimmy Trotter would come out and just have a peep at us. Well, I don't know what other clubs did in those days, but subsequently, when I was with Leicester in particular, the trainers were always with the players, controlling and directing the training. And
so Jimmy Trotter wasn't always there, right?
Well, he was probably treating injuries, you see, and he would just pop out from treating injuries. I don't know whether Don Welsh ever told you, I told him, and I think he remembered. I mentioned it in the letter I wrote to him. But one Sunday morning, after Don had been off quite a time, and it was his little daughter was quite a small baby in the big pram, you know. Sunday morning I had to go in, a rare thing for me to be injured. I went in injured, a little bit of treatment. And Don was in, and he was down really to start doing a little bit of training. So Jimmy Trotter had the lamp on my ankle, would be my ankle, because it was the only thing that ever went wrong, apart from my stomach. He went out, and he came back in right away, and he said, "Hey, let me put the lamp off. Come out here and have a look." I wondered what was wrong. But he discovered something. And you'll never believe it, but Don was out there with his training kit on, pushing the pram round the track. Walking, obviously. He's supposed to be down there training, and he's walking round with the pram. That's as true as I'm here. I told him about it in the letter when he gave me his address. Yeah. My Don speaks disparagingly about Jimmy Trotter. He thinks Jimmy Trotter did him some disservice.
He complains about his knee, doesn't he?
I don't know.
He says that he could end up with very bad cartilage problems and arthritis, and he says that Jimmy Trotter knew he needed an operation, but he kept playing him on it. That's what Don says. He feels a bit bitter about it.
Well, he would know that better than I, because I have no knowledge of anything like that. I can only speak, you all only can speak as you knew people, and I had a great deal of time for Jimmy Trotter. It seemed to me that he knew everything that was necessary to know about his job. And he was a great chap to play under, you know, he'd been a player himself. He was sympathetic towards players in the sympathetic sense.
He was England trainer as well, wasn't he?
Afterwards, yes, that was...
I just remember he was doing, and some of the players I've met said he was a marvel.
Yes, I would say Jimmy Trotter was a great trainer. Obviously, everything has to be seen in the context of its day. There are a lot of things that might be better now, although I can't think of many things that seem to be better, but then I'm not among it. I'm certain there are lots of things that were better in our day than they are today. As far as I'm concerned personally, I wouldn't have preferred to play in this day, not because it's harder, maybe it is physically in some senses, but I never think it could be any more hard work than it was in our day.
Do you think maybe the level of fitness is a lot higher now than it was in your day?
I don't know. I don't know. It's easy to say these things. I think probably the players are trained better technically. But very often they're trained by people who are untrained as trainers. That is to say, you'll get people who stand up in front of a squad and slog them to death and say, well, if you're not fit now, you never will be, and they've probably done them as much harm as good. You know what I mean? Yeah. There has to be a knowledge of physical training, and some of us learned in the RAF how little we knew about real physical training. Technical physical training, you know. And it isn't just a case of slogging at everything and doing things the hard way.
There's subtleties to it as well.
Well, there's knowledge, there's understanding, and there's also the understanding that all men are not one man, that all of us are uniquely different, and it's essential that we are known as individuals, and that can be a difficult thing. It can look sometimes that you're treating players as flesh and fowl. I've had Davy Gibson at Leicester, not in training, but in coaching, because we had trainers to train and coaches to coach. And I've had Davy Gibson doing certain things that the others weren't doing. because what they were doing was of no advantage to him. And we would sort people out. For the first time that I could ever think, at Leicester, the goalkeepers were separated from the other players when the other players were doing things that were of no consequence to the goalkeepers. So the goalkeepers wanted to be doing specialised work, and that's what we did. And we put a great deal of thought into it. Now, I think perhaps we, in the 60s, put a lot more thought into what we were doing in preparation for what we were doing than was done in the old days. The old days were just a resumption of pre-war days. It was just picking up the loose ends again.
Many of the same players.
But this fell foul, in my estimation, around the end of the 60s, when characters came in who were all theorists, and somehow they seemed to swamp the game. And what I believe happened, and I believe this implicitly, because I've been present, what they call the place up in Lilleshall. I went there with Jock Steen and Matt Gillis. Jock Steen came and spent a week with us because he'd heard, this was when he was at Celtic, and although they were winning matches, they won the league, 10 times was it, some ridiculous number. He'd heard from somebody that a week with us, or a time with us, would be beneficial. Not for him to learn, but just to look and see. And he came and he stayed, and we went to Lilleshall in the midweek, Wednesday. What did they call that coach? He was a Hungarian coach. Anyway, you know the chap I mean. Everybody thought he was marvellous, and quite honestly, it was just that he had a way of putting things over, but he wasn't telling people anything that people at that level shouldn't have known. He wasn't telling them anything, and he was making them laugh. He was just one of those personalities. He could put it over, and they couldn't argue with what he was saying because you know, it was all, in a sense, basic stuff. And as I say, anybody who came away and revelled in what he said, they shouldn't have been there in the first place, because they should have known it before they ever went there.
Yeah, of course.
And I wouldn't take anything away from him, but he was getting money for all the road. But we came away, and I can remember us now, it was David Jones as well, who was one of our trainers, the four of us went, and we came back and we laughed our socks off at some of the things. And you had players, Joe Mercer, he was never away from Lilleshall. He virtually lived there, and he was, by this time, you know, on crutches nearly. And he would take part in everything. He liked to be one of the boys, you know, Joe. Great fellow, old Joe, you know. He was a nice fellow, actually. But I remember us laughing at this, you know. And we came back and would see nothing that would have been contributory to anything that we had to be responsible for. Nothing. But you see, Malcolm Allison, he was there, and he loved this sort of thing. I think it was always people who were sort of wanting to express themselves. You know, I had a lot of time for Malcolm. He would tell you, as a boy, incidentally, I met him that day. I went to see him in Walkley, Coventry. He was doing a little bit for a North East paper. But Malcolm was one of these unrestrained characters. He liked to be, he was a bit like Sam, he liked to be a forefront man.
Well,
I think
very flamboyant, isn't he?
Yes, that's why Jimmy Seed, that was what Jimmy Seed had against him. But I always doubted, I think Jimmy Seed heard something about Malcolm Allison, or somebody reported Malcolm Allison. This is pure supposition, really, but something coloured the water as far, because he was a good, young, promising centre half.
Derek Afton, because Malcolm Allison was responsible.
That was
Derek
another
Afton,
time.
wasn't
I
it?
said to Jimmy Seed one day, I paid Malcolm Allison and Albert Ayton Bogart compliments. It was a weekend when I'd played in the reserves, just as a tryout, and Malcolm Allison played centre half, and Albert Ayton Bogart played goalkeeper, and we beat West Ham. I don't know now, but you'd have to look it up in the records, either 9 or 10. And I said, obviously, winning that score, goalkeeper and centre half don't have too much to do they? But I said to Jimmy Seed, again, like I'd said before, something to their advantage, and he said to me, "You leave team selection to me, Bert." I wasn't picking them, but he just put me in my place, you know. I had a lot of time for Malcolm. Oh, he was good. I think what he was a funny chap, Jimmy Seed. He belonged to his age, his era, and
which was what, 20s, isn't it, really?
yes, he was the kind of man who'd never changed. And Albert Bogart married a widow. She wasn't an old person, but older than him. She could have been 10 years older. I can't remember now. But she was still a young woman, because he was quite a young man. And he went back to South Africa, but I think he wouldn't have gone if he'd been given any indication that there was a future for him at Charlton. Because I thought he was a superb goalkeeper.
Because you were there as the South Africans began to arrive. Sid O'Lynn was there.
The first two, Dudley Forbes and Sid O'Lynn. Then the others came in 2s and 3s, Eddie Fermani and Stuart Leary. And they all had something about them. John Huey, good player, John Huey. Good fullback. Yes, they all had.
It's strange, this sort of regional sort of
But you
plundering
see,
that Jimmy sees.
there was a chap called Keane,
Mm.
Eric Keane. He was a wing half before the war. He played for Derby County, and he went to South Africa. He emigrated, and he was the one who got in touch with Jimmy Seed. I don't know on what basis, but he got in touch with Jimmy Seed of all people, and that's how they started arriving. And I tell you what, there were no failures came over. They weren't always all going to make it, but there were no failures. They were all ball-wise. You know, they were, like the Australians, they could play anything where a ball was in.
Yeah.
They're good cricketers, good golfers.
It was, yes, someone was telling me, Joe Merriweather. You knew Joe Merriweather.
Know the name?
His father was involved with the founding of the club. And
Know
his
the
son,
name.
who was there as he was probably a teenager after the war. He was about 60, but he knew Stuart Leary very well. He was a very good friend of Stuart Leary, and Joe played tennis. And apparently one day Stuart said to Joe, I'd like to learn to play tennis. And Joe Merriweather said, with a word of a lie, within half an hour you could play the game.
Yeah.
You know,
He
he
was
had such a good eye
yeah.
for the ball.
Yeah, that's right. They had this. And they used to do some ridiculous things, really, though understandable things. After all, they were just young men. And they would tee a golf ball up just where the players come out and have arguments as to which of them could hit it up the far terracing and over into those allotments. Yeah. Another one was an argument as to who could throw a cricket ball out of one goal mouth, and they had to have 1 foot back over the goal line, out of one goal mouth over into the other goal without a bounce. And they did it.
They did, I'm sure.
I don't mean they all did it. Norman Nielsen, great lanky, lithe character. He was good at these sort of things. But he was a wild man, Norman Nielsen.
Not right.
He was tremendous in an athletic sense. You might say he was daft enough to have been an Australian. But, you know, he'd attempt anything.
Mm.
Nothing worked. And Polly Kirsten, who was always a wag, incidentally, we're still in touch with Polly Kirsten.
Really?
He used to get Norman, you know, he had a drawl, dry sort of way.
Mm.
And he would talk as though he was taking you into his conference, and all the time he was egging you on. You know? And he would say to Norman, that's some hedge. It'd be the hedge of somebody's front garden, he said. That's some hedge, Norman, even you couldn't jump that. And all the time Norman, half a step behind, fastening his jump, you know. Next thing, he's jumped the hedge into somebody's front garden. This is true, literally true.
That's amazing.
Ah, dear. Honestly, there's never, ever a dull moment. It was ever so funny.
Well, we've been talking for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah, have we said anything?
Well, I don't know. I don't think so. You keep mentioning your photographs, so I'd very much like to.
Well, I can
to see them.
find some. I don't know that they're all there because they haven't been saved as souvenirs. They've been just stuck away in a cupboard. I'll get them down. But you know, all these things are peripheral.
Well, that's what I'm interested in because I'm not writing the official history of the club. I'm writing a social history, which is the story of the people within the club, be it the players, the supporters, the workers, the police.
That's right.
So I just want to try and build up some kind of image of the atmosphere and how it changed over the years, how it progressed over the years. Yesterday I spoke to this chap called Fred Budden. His father, Sam Budden, was their first trainer in 1905-06, and Fred's now 87, and he was taken down when he was 3 years old when Charlton Athletic were first playing, and Charlton Athletic. Fascinating talking to him about
who was a star way back, and I'm not talking about before the war, but before the war as well. He wouldn't get into some teams today. I mean, the player I'm thinking of wouldn't get into Wimbledon team or anything like that. The type of player I'm talking about belonged to his particular era. The Alec Jameses, the Davy Gibsons, Douglas, who played for Blackburn Rovers, skillful players, you know. Got a little fellow who played inside forward for Arsenal, Logie, Jimmy Logie. They really were on the smaller side. They were skilled players. If they were in a game that had other ingredients than skill, they might as well have stayed in the dressing room, because. And yet these people, they were the characters who influenced the game because of their skill and because of the other players around them turning their skill to good effect. I mean, Davy Gibson at Leicester City, he was fantastic, and he was a man like Alec James who could hit a ball from defensive areas that put you on the attack at the other end. I mean, it was a known ploy, and yet people couldn't stop it. That he would somehow contrive to get a ball up to Mike Stringfellow at Leicester, who had a heart as big as this, and he would carry it, as Gordon Hurst would have carried it in our day. He would carry it right to where the business end was, and this was in 2 moves, virtually. Well, you know, there's always room for players who can do these specialised things. But you see, they've been scripted to such an extent that they don't even think for themselves.
Well, Paul Gascoigne is probably quite a good
that's
point
right.
here, because the England game was before the summer, wasn't it, where he came on, he shone, he scored a couple of goals.
Yes, yes.
And then afterwards, Bobby Robson was saying, oh, well, he's got the talent, but he's a bit wild.
That's
okay,
right.
he's wild. And
That's
you saw
right.
that in the match just the other week. If you saw that when he got in the tangle, and
That's
he was seeing red. He just tried to go through all the way, but then he lost the ball. Robson says he needs to be tamed, he needs to be more coaching, what have you. But you know, the question that was put to Bobby Robson about is a perfectly fair question. Well, is his skill going to be coached out of him? Is his ingenuity and his
that's the
individuality?
first thing the spectator thinks about. But it also presupposes that everybody is coachable, and they're not. Now,
they are to a certain degree, though, surely.
Well, you might say you can rub the corners off some, but some of them are always going to be what you call a rough diamond. Whether they are diamonds is another matter. Maybe they can do certain things on certain occasions, but maybe they can't do them often enough to make it profitable. What I was going to say, just in general terms, is that there are really two factors that have to be intertwined. One is instinct, flair, call it what you will. It's instinct, it's something that is animal in us. I'm not talking about being an animal and cutting the other fellow to ribs, you know what I mean by that. The human
instinctiveness born with
human instinct. You can't be taught to do these things. If you haven't got it instinctively, nobody can put it there. All the coaches in the world wouldn't put it there. The other thing is, what's the word?
Understand.
Well, it is. That's what it is, but that's in the word I want. Oh, it's funny how these things go. But the two things. One weighs things up and considers things and makes judgment on these things. And the other is something you don't have time to make judgments. You do it, and afterwards you realise you've done it. Like selling a man a dummy. It's just something that's grown up with you. You haven't time to think, but you've done it, and it's successful, and you can do it again, and will do it again, and people score goals in that same way.
So it suddenly becomes second nature.
It's in the net before they realise almost what they've done. Now the two things must be there in the right proportions. Not lopsided, but in the right proportions. And this is what you strive to do. You strive to get a balance between a man's ability to assess a position and make judgment on a position and his instinct. And you have to have room for the two. And obviously it's going to work out better if you can make him aware that these two things exist. Otherwise he's going to be all one or all of the other if somebody doesn't tell him. You don't grow up knowing these things. You know, I mean, sometimes you have to tell a player what he can do. You have to sum him up because he can't sum himself up and say, now this is an asset that you've got, and you know, you must continue doing this. But there are certain things that reduce your abilities, and these are the things we've got to try and keep out of the way, not indulge in. And one way and another, and this doesn't come overnight. You can't tell him today and tomorrow he does it. You've got to work on it and work on it. And you see this in the cricket, don't you? Where these cricketers who've been making blatant mistakes with the bat particularly.
Garrett got bowled.
Well, that's
just
right.
Hung his bat up, thinking the ball was going way past the wicket. And he just
now you'd say a novice wouldn't do that. I mean, at least a novice would have a slash at them. But you see, this is the type of thing. And people think that once you've got a player doing these things, he's always got it. But it isn't true. They can lapse. And you're never finished. They say a woman's work is never done while a coach's is never done. And these are the reasons that you're working with human beings. And while some human beings, once you've told them they've got it, you have to tell other people every day the same things. It's just because we're all different. And it's so important. Now as a player, this sort of thing doesn't concern you. It never crosses your mind. You don't think of all the problems that the coaches or the trainers might have, or the manager. You don't think of those problems because it doesn't concern you. All you want to do is get out there with the ball. But you see, if you can channel a person's assets to the best of their ability, then you're going to have a better player than a man who wastes half of his energies. And half of his abilities.
that one instant with Gascoigne, where he saw red and he went like a bull in a china shop with the ball and lost the ball, which is something that a professional shouldn't do. They shouldn't react like that.
Well,
he should still have had an element of coolness in his head, power to reason, to see that what he was doing was wrong.
Well, the man I was talking about, the chairman at Newcastle, when he left Newcastle, he said something to that effect about Gascoigne, didn't he?
Did he?
He says a genius with no brains. Meant he was a genius in his feet, but no brains. yeah. And as much as said he never will have. What they call him? Stan Seymour.
Right.
I couldn't remember his name before. I'll go get this podcast.
Right. No?
Jimmy. We went across there, and we went out, and it was October here. We were wearing great coats to go out there, and we flew out there in a converted York airliner. And the next day we played, and it was 90 odd, and we all had winter clothes, you see. But the thing was, the sun was slaughtering us, and we came in, Glasgow got through the match. And I remember the boss, and he, it was a bit disrespectful, but he said, "You couldn't beat a load of wogs." That's what he said. And we were glad to get off the pitch, never mind. And it was because he'd never heard of Benfica, and Benfica carried all before them. This is Town Hall at Woolwich after one of the cup finals. We were lucky, we had two lots of people claiming as Greenwich and Woolwich, so we had two meals. This is
that was the following Saturday.
Lisbon Benfica, and that's where we stayed at Istanbul on the Trabia on the Bosphorus. And this is complimentary dinner at Greenwich Town Hall.
That one.
Rather clever, that one. Dr. Montgomery's little bit.
Dr. Montgomery wrote this.
Well, no, he didn't write it. I don't know who got that to me. Dr. Montgomery was great with Shakespeare and Robbie Burns.
He just did the quotes.
Yeah. I don't know whether he did the quotes.
Mr. Donmarsh, almost counting his talent.
We played somebody there in Singapore. This was with Leicester. No, who was it? Southampton, when Ted Bates was manager. Somebody start messing. I don't know. I don't know whether my wife or my mother saved that.
I think we've probably got one of them. We inherited a lot of things from your mum.
Stephen Marr. Oh, this was this was when we went.
I'm doing good talking like this.
I've learned the system for a while.
This was when we were entertained at Kenneth Kawunda's place in Lusaka. He's in the news again, isn't he, this week?
Yeah.
This is one where we were. My wife and I were. This is the what we call him. This coloured chap, Ben Verrec. He was the French international inside forward. And you know the 1-2, you know, give and get back. In France, you could get away with that. They didn't seem to have any means of checking that sort of thing. And Ben Verrec, who was a great, natural, what they call the French place in North Africa, Algeria. He was an Algerian, and he had all the skills and all the strength, everything a natural athlete would have. But he'd never played against anybody who stopped him doing the 1-2. In other words, when he gave the ball and went, he always expected to lose the opponent because the opponent goes after the ball, which is wrong. And he could never get over the fact that I always went with him. And he was ever such a sporting chap. And I remember we were sitting having a chat. We sort of formed, we met once or twice. He played in the French team against us, and we played in that club match against us. And I remember the manager at the hotel, the chef really, the head chef, he brought a tray of meringue stuff, and meringue and ice cream that had been left after everybody had been served. And this Ben Bert sat and ate it. He ate a lot. And they reckon he regularly did that. Anything that was left, he could eat it. I mean, it was enough to pull an animal with it.
He doesn't look that big.
He was big. He was big. He was very tall, yeah.
So they're
athletic.
They had short shorts, didn't they?
Yes, yes, to us. Short to
Well,
us.
Look at the comparison.
Yes, I know. Well, our players used to say, if only we had their lighter boots, lighter shin guards, lighter shorts, lighter shirts, and we used to go on. But now we've got all these lighter things we wear spares. This chap, I was taken to some newspaper offices. This was the big man, the Tour de France champion over the years. I used to know his name, I forgot his name. He said early days at Charlton, look at the state of this shirt. It was when we had detachable collars. They used to take the collars off and wash them and leave the monkey shirt on. But I was in a hangar in the Air Force, and I cut my head across there, and it was a Friday. You can see the scar there.
Yeah, it's just sitting at the top there.
And I banged into a girder in a hangar. And I rang Jimmy Seed during the lunch hour and I said, I've just done the daftest trick. We were playing Arsenal at Tottenham the next day because Arsenal hadn't resumed the tie-break after the war. And I said to Jimmy Seed, I think you'll have to count me out for tomorrow. I said, I've got a turban on. I said, I've just had 4 stitches put in my forehead. He said, you're breathing, aren't you? And honestly, he did. He actually said, and I played. And on the Monday morning, we beat Arsenal. And on the Monday in the meantime, the England team had been picked, and I was in it. And on the Monday morning, it said there were 4 bald heads. There was Gordon Nurse, Sailor Brown, Don Welsh, and me. But what happened was that Dr. Montgomery just took his scissors when I got there and took this dressing off, this big patch, and just put a little bit of tape on, and I went out so that half the hair that I was left was like that, you see. And it's still there then, when that photograph is there. And the Sunday paper made a big song about these 4 bald heads who dominated the game. There's Ayson Park, Harold Phipps jumping with somebody, and Wilf Mannion and I. There's another one with those funny colours. There's one.
So it looks like that was half detached.
There's one that's gone a little bit faded.
I think that was like that.
We had some photographs taken.
That wasn't fixed properly when they processed it.
But some of them did do that, you
Another one.
too quickly.
And here are the 3 greatest open golf champions you ever saw. Alec McRae, Charlie Vaughan and me. You can tell we've got all the gear.
Charlie Vaughan died recently, didn't he?
Yeah?
Yeah, so I was
Charlie
told.
Vaughan?
So I was told.
People do that, but it always comes as a shock to you. Now there's one. That's when the team was starting to change. You've got Charlie Purves, Tommy Lumley, Sid O'Lynn, Tommy Brown, all coming into the team. You know, that was when the earlier part of the changes. Ted Croker's on this. Secretary of the FA. George
Retired now.
Yeah.
Good lad, Ted. George Hicks. There's Sid Ellis, the back.
Oh, the top there. Sam's at the front.
And this is an RAF team that was Stan Matthews 11. The only man who wasn't there, Stan Matthews. He cried off after he got his fee, I think. But they're all players. This chap used to be an Arsenal scout for donkey's years. He was a Manchester City wing half and fullback when I knew him in the first instance. George Farrell played for Blackpool. Bob Cross, Wing Commander Cross, he played for Queen's Park, Glasgow, the Hamilton. So, Tommy Pearson, Hugh O'Donnell, Bobby Finnan. I wonder if he's still alive. This lad played for Blackburn Rovers centre half, and he was also a Lancashire player. And he was Blackpool's goalkeeper. And Norman Kirby played for Dundee.
Stanley Matthews Select 11.
Yeah.
Did you play any representative matches for the area?
No, we didn't get into these games at all. What tended to be done was, it was either beneficial or otherwise where you were stationed. You virtually, even to get into a command team, you virtually had to be in certain places, not on ops and that sort of thing,
Sailor Brown played a lot for the area, didn't he?
I don't really remember because so little filtered through to you in those days.
What was this occasion? Stanley given a cigar there?
Yes, I think he was, but I don't know what it's in aid of. George Hicks was a wag. He was quite a character. His brother was in the Green Berets. Were the Green Berets or Red Berets? The
ones
the Commandos.
Red Berets.
Red Berets.
Yeah.
But, well, they were airborne. Airborne.
Yeah.
And every now and again they occupied a big house belonging to the Earl of Liverpool, but it was at Skellingthorpe in Lincoln, just the outskirts of Lincoln. And most of the time they were away on ops. And one morning I used to cut through there because it was a short cut through. Nobody occupied this place. And I was going through along the path one morning, lovely morning. Oh, all these fellas jumped out on me. I got the fright of my life, because everything was quiet and peaceful, and then it's just like on the outskirts of Lincoln. And I knew it was me, with George Hicks' brother, and a whole crowd, and they'd seen me go through the morning before, and said, tomorrow we'll put the wind up him. I tell you, a real fright. But it was typical of our day. There are a few footballers on here, I can't just... This one, see that one next to the officer, he finished up a referee, a regular referee, many years in Scotland. He was in charge of our area. This second, the chap next to him is Larry Canning. He broadcasts.
Oh, yes,
yes, he's always on the 5 o'clock results on Saturday nights. There were one or two there, I can't remember them just altogether by name. But it was a collection of our group. We were 5 group bomber command, and we were playing a game. I'll tell you who captained the team against us, Neil Franklin. Is that the same photograph? See, that was... No, not that one. I'm pretty sure it is. Yes. You have one of those.
You sure?
Yes, they're both the same, aren't they? That's they're blue sisters. Davy Jones and me down at... He was a trainer and I was coach at Leicester. I can't point out all the people there. I can't remember all the names.
Regiment, isn't it?
RAF. Yes. That's Uxbridge. Oh, what?
T-ball.
Last
bit, Dom's got hair.
These were nice menus.
When it came to the war, did you before the war, did you?
This was I think when I was first picked for England, and Jimmy Trotter's supposed to be telling me what the right side of the ball was.
Did you volunteer for any of the services before the war actually started?
I volunteered, but it was only because I would have inevitably have been called up, like lots of people did. I thought, well, if I was going to be in, thanks a lot.
I take it when it is.
Yeah, you're getting. It's probably more from you than that. Oh, no. No, the round. I'll go and get them, sorry.
Well,
There's an interesting place. It's the
yeah, I can see you.
it's the indoor place that was just built then in Kuala Lumpur, and the Boys had to come in to cover me, not to cover me, because the ball was coming in from the other wing. You see, he came in as the covering full back, and I moved out to stop the crossfield ball to the other winger, and he goes and puts the ball in our net.
30 seconds later he scored, didn't he?
No, Bert Turner scored. No, Bert Turner might have scored that one. He did, I think. He scored at either end.
Yeah.
That was Jack Shreve and Jack Oakes there.
This is the original, is it?
That's the original. Tatty. There's one at Charlton. That did. Now this is now Parc de France. This is the big stadium today where they play the big international rugby and football games.
Yeah.
But the stadium's all been, it's like Wembley, it's been
So
completed.
So it's you, Sam, Peter Croker.
Sam, Peter Croker, Charlie Purves, Eric Lancelot, Bill Robinson, Maurice Tadman, Caggy Hobbs, is that? Yes. No, that's Bill Robinson. This is Maurice Tadman. Tommy Dawson and Bob Wright. And these are the French team. And there's one of the international match against France. Oh, it's all right, just leave them there. This is at Colombe Stadium. You remember in 1924 when Eric Liddell refused to run in the Olympics because it was on a Sunday? Well, this is that same stadium.
Oh, really?
And this is where last year they had the, they had some big games, probably the Olympic one. I'm there, Tommy Lawton, Les Smith, played for Aston Villa and Brentford. This goalkeeper, Darawee, he was absolutely fantastic that day.
So when did you get your call up, your international call up?
46 it was. 46. There again is before. This must have been another match in Paris because Bert Turner wasn't on that other photograph.
No, it wasn't. And Charlie Rebel was there as well.
And Charlie Rebel was there. And George Robinson. That's an earlier one.
Yeah. There's a player you're talking about before.
No, that's not him. No. He was the first player I ever played against, a coloured player.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something. Sounds daft, this, but I played against him, and I'd never played against a coloured player before. We didn't have any, you see, and at half time we go back out and line up, and I'm looking around for this coloured fellow, and there isn't one. So I start to go around their team, and they're all white fellas. I couldn't make it out. Again, you know, we hadn't come to that business of substituting players like they did. If we got a player short, we just stayed one short.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around for this player and scratching my head, because I was going to pick him up again, you know. They'd taken him off and put somebody else on his place. Sounds crazy nowadays, but it was all part and parcel of our day, I'm afraid. Now that one is keep. This is another one.
Which match is this one? What's the final
Well, this was the semi-final, wasn't
semi-final
it?
against Bolton. Duffy scored the 2 goals with shot. That's a league match last October. This is supposed to be semi-final 46. Is that right? Play Bolton, go to Bolton.
That's what it is.
Which one's it?
Oh, that's the team. You have that one, I think.
Well, yes, it's printed in that one. So.
Oh, this is the English team in France. Oh. See, that's Ben Bert.
Oh, yeah. That's in
And the England team there's Tommy Lawton, Joe Bacuzzi, Jimmy Hagan, George Hardwick, Grace Carter, Neil Franklin, Stanley Matthews, myself, Bert Williams, Billy Wright, Les Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Seems funny, you have to look through there to see the crowd, usually, so to see the crowd up here.
Yeah.
But,
I'm just looking at this. It's the short shorts they've got, isn't it?
yes, yeah.
Compared to yours.
The baggy ones are too.
I mean, I think yours come down beneath your knees.
That's where they got these Bermuda shorts.
Or the rage now.
Yeah, well, the fashion I used to put my brother few pairs.
I think Sam had got to it, and
Mm.
they knocked it sideways. And that's another one, that's Jimmy Delaney, Manchester United. That's an old wartime snap of Bolton Wanderers and Bury, I think. Looked more like a choir boy on me. We have some of these pictures twice.
I know, you
Now then,
See, we have
here you
pictures
are,
in
there's
the
some Charlton fans at that Newcastle match. That's not the picture I was telling you about, but that's the same match.
These are Charlton fans, are they?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Well, it was given to me.
Oh.
They're ecstatic, aren't they?
Here, wartime pictures. Of that same match, Bury versus Bolton Wanderers, an empty stadium because it was wartime.
Mm.
And that's old George Hunt, number 9, used to play for Spurs.
Mm.
And that's me just in front of him. There's one up there. And this is my first tour abroad, 1936. I'm not actually in this photograph, but that was Stockton,
Mm-hmm.
well, Antwerp. Antwerp was one. It was one of these matches where you play over, Easter Saturday, Easter
Mhm.
Monday type of thing. It's another one. These are just
Burn
shots
down.
during the
Mm.
match. This is another one. There it goes on that one, isn't it, Croker?
Let's take a
Isn't it?
look.
No, that's not Ted, is it? That's Ted next to Peter.
Mm.
And that's Eric Gill. He
Mm.
played, I don't know how many matches for Brighton, was it?
Mm.
600, something?
Very lot.
700? West Fowler?
But you don't see many, when I was talking to those, because he was, most of the time he was semi-pro. He wasn't around.
That's right,
when
well, he
when
had
the
a
team
job.
when the team shots were taken.
He had a job, lads,
There's another one in the dressing room.
Look at that crowd of trainers, all well dressed, in the brothers' cast-offs. That was just playing,
Charlie looks like his army
that was
jacket.
just playing Bolton Wanderers. Oh, there was a team. We had great contact with Sweden, and this was Norrköping, a good team. 3 brothers there who all were internationals. In fact, nearly all the team were internationals. The Nordahl brothers all played for Sweden, all at the same time. Yes. This is obviously a pose for some newspaper who said give us a photograph, you know. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Let's try to see yours.
Yeah. Mind you, players wouldn't go out in the things we used to wear.
Tommy Dawson again.
Yes, Tommy Dawson. It's just an old local one. That's another RAF one. It's just a smaller one of the bigger ones. Must have assumed he's bad at it, isn't he? Now here's that French match. It's the one where Bob Wright's playing. The Cologne Stadium.
Does Sam always
No, that's the Parc des Princes. It's
Does Sam always wear the knee pads?
I can't remember now. I know he used to wear them occasionally. Usually I would think if the ground was a little bit harder.
Looks like he's completely missing all there, doesn't he?
Has done well. So we would be saying, if you want me to wear, if you want me to wear my top coat, it'll cost you a bigger fee. These are crowd of Charlton people. Again, the same. I think they're the same people as on the other.
I recognise that time.
Now then, he's a photograph before my time.
I wonder if they had Haddocks on one of those cars.
That's before my time.
We've got George Green on now. Seth Davis next to him. Seth, did you ever know Seth Davis?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
he's still living in Charlton.
Yes.
You see me still sees George all the time.
Yeah. Yes. Bolton Wanderers in Charlton. Look at that. Wouldn't get £1 for that one, would you?
You get a dance at more. And now.
The thing was,
Dance at more.
I'd played with Bolton Wanderers as a guest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he played on the phone. They gave him a fountain pen. I'll never forget that. It was such a lot in those days.
They have no idea what the names here, do they? D Trotter. B Croker. H Josson.
oh, that's right. That's near enough. Here's another one of the Derby Cup final. And here we are at that hotel at Eastbourne. You know, on the front.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and there's a difference in the shorts. Look at that. That's the French.
Yeah, but there's something that Sailor Brown was saying to me. He said, he said you could never get a team. It's impossible to get a team today to play against a team of say 40 years ago. But what you could do is pitch 2 teams against each other wearing the old gear, or swapping the gear over. Shin pads. What's the way to tell?
There were we in that cup tie at Fulham that you were referring to.
Oh, the one you lost.
We slaughtered them at, and that's the cup final goal with Christopher scored against
That's right, I
Birmingham.
haven't seen it from that angle. I've never seen it from the front.
There's
With the back of him with his
Looking
arms in
there.
the air.
match-winning save at Bolton.
Well
That's it. Photograph. Well, look as though we're trying to keep warm. Here's another one. Some of us with the fans after that Newcastle match. But you can't tell who were Newcastle fans and who were ours, because they were black and white and we were red and white.
Do you know something? I've got a copy of this photograph. Now I'm wondering, there's a chap who comes to the Charlton Athletic Reminiscence class who lent me this, and he said that he took it. So maybe he's the one that sent you this.
I don't know. I don't know where it. I have no idea where it came from.
I've
That was the
seen
strip at Charlton in the days when I first joined the club. And that was, where was it I got that black eye? In France, wasn't it? At Chamonix or somewhere. I got an elbow in my eye, and when we came back, Alan,
Right shiny, isn't it?
you know, Alan Butler.
Oh, Alan Butler. I'm thinking Charlton and places like that.
Here's another picture that's lost its way back.
That's the same French match, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, these
Spot the ball.
these French photographers used to develop and print these photographs before the match was over. And by the end of the match, they had all the photographs there. We used to have to wait ages if we were getting a photograph.
That's why they're not fixed properly.
That was,
like that.
The Wembley game.
That's 47.
Yeah, that's common, right? The daft things you do for posing. This was just a crowd of RAF lads. Can't remember the names. That's one taken when I was off injured at Aston Villa. That's a blown up one of that. Oh, he is one like the one you.
It's the same one.
Is it? Probably is. Just about.
Same time. He must have been taken just after this when he went to
Yeah.
It's Charlie Revel, his son.
Yeah. That's a photograph I can't even remember, but it's got the hair showing off. That's a crowd again of sports people, all PTIs at Ipswich. And this is Norrköping, the Swedish team. With the Nordahl brothers again. That's a smaller one that we've already seen. Yeah. These others are all bits and pieces of stuff like visits to Germany and Austria and Turkey and all sorts of. They weren't intended to be kept.
Yeah.
You got called up. You got international cap after the war.
Yes.
How many appearances did you make?
I made 2. I played against Switzerland and I played against France. And then the season ended and the new season began, and I was chosen to play for the rest, for England versus the rest. As far as I remember, it was the same team that had finished the whole season. In the meantime, the FA had been asked to supply a team to play in that match against Benfica. And Jimmy Seed, it was some celebration earlier, and Jimmy Seed said, well, he would like my release. He told me about it, and he said, I've been told it won't jeopardise the selection for the English match. See, when you played the domestic international matches, the Irish match came right at the start of the season, in a sense, before you were really ready for international and representative matches. So I went, I was quite happy to go with Charlton. I wanted to go to Lisbon. And they played this other game while I was away. It was a regular thing, but it was really just an early workout for the English team. And I was the only one that ultimately not chosen. Well, it didn't bother me in that sense. But I often thought about it afterwards, that what happened, you see, was this, that Walter Winterbottom had been appointed manager of the England team during the summer. Now, prior to that, the England team was picked by a committee, and he inherited, and I say this only as I see it, he inherited a team that was growing older. You know, the Lawtons and the Matthews and the Carters and all these people, and I was now 30. And so if I'd been manager, looking back, I would have wanted to lessen the ages of the team. It's the first thing that would occur to me. And given him the benefit of the doubt, on the other hand, he could have been a bit piqued because I'd chosen to play for club rather than country. And done what was done to Colin Todd and somebody else just a year or 2 ago when they did the same thing. And the thing about it was that he was an amateur at the time he played with Manchester United, and he probably had a lot of people advocating Henry Coburn, who came and played in my stead in this match. And he, of course, was a new generation of players, and that was a start, at least, to reducing the age of the team.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, it was a logical thing to do.
Mm.
So I never.
But so because you never played in that trial match.
Well, I wouldn't be in a position to say that.
You never know, do you?
I just never know. As I say, giving him the benefit of the doubt,
Mm.
I could say he's a new manager and he has to reduce the ages of the team. And it may be that somebody at Manchester was saying, you've got to put this young fellow in, Henry Coburn, because that's how things are done, that's how things happen very often. But I was originally actually chosen in the England team to play against the rest. The team was chosen before I went to Benfica.
Mm.
So, you know, that was actually the end for me as far as the internationals were concerned, because they weren't going to make too many considerations. It was a younger generation of players who came in after that.
Mm.
Tom Finney's and people who were a sort of next generation of people.
I think we better finish off quite soon.
Actually, none of the wing halves who played in that trial, well, 3 of them didn't. What am I saying? The players who played in that trial, in the rest team, they weren't considered. I mean, Henry Coburn wasn't in that game, England versus the rest. He was just brought in afterwards.
When did you make your debut for Charlton? I don't know that. Did you make in the
after the
first
war?
team? It was after the war.
It was after the war. I travelled down while I was still in the RAF and played games before football resumed in its normal form. When it was north and south, as I say, you know, you could still, in a sense, play for anybody. But we had a good team at that time, and as I say, we nearly won the league and the cup. And that was the time when Jimmy Seed's brother wanted me to play for Barnsley in the regional play. But the F.A.Cup actually resumed that year.
Yeah, on an away basis.
And the next year, the whole caboodle was back to its former pattern.
So we'll just finish off then. If you had to sum up your career at Charlton, how would you sum it up?
Well, I could just say I couldn't have imagined anything happier. There are always things that you could have wished had worked otherwise, but you have no regrets. You can't have regrets because you can't have everything perfectly in your favour. And so many things were in my favour that I couldn't possibly, it would be churlish to regret anything.
Even the 7 years of your professional career that you lost to having to go for services and wartime?
Well, the only thing I would say about that, and I don't want to sound philosophical, but I knew players who didn't come back. And I knew players who'd just been that bracket older than me, who were too old to play when I came back. So, you know, although my career was certainly in its later days when I came back from the war, at least, I tasted the sweets of the game, and I was just fortunate that things were like that. I mean, some players play a full career unhindered and never get to Wembley and never do these things. And yet mine was a very restricted career, and I managed to, you know, get these benefits.
And you got the medals, the caps, you got the
But
shirts.
I've still got to say that you know, over and above it all, I enjoyed playing football. I really enjoyed it. I mean, you can virtually say that every game. Obviously, every game wasn't enjoyable. You couldn't always enjoy it when you were little. But I was with a good team, with a good crowd of fellas, and even after I moved, I was usually with a good crowd of fellas. You know, and when I think of some of the things that are reputed to have happened at other clubs and one thing and another, I've been very fortunate. It depends what yardstick you use to measure things by, but I wouldn't want to swap my career with somebody else's.
Just one other thing I'd like to ask. The crowds at the Valley, especially when you came back at the end of the war, were phenomenal. I mean, they had an average attendance of 60,000 that first season after the war.
That was incredible.
What was it like playing there with that crowd?
Well, you know, I could only say use your imagination here. You couldn't have wished for anything more than that. I mean, today that would be a dream, wouldn't it? I mean, every home match is an international, isn't it? You know, packed gates, no problems, no troubles, no misbehaviour. You're playing in an electric atmosphere. It was simply marvellous. Simply marvellous. And yet, you know, I suppose I like to think this way, that the players I played with, and myself included, we'd have enjoyed playing behind closed gates. You know, just for the sake of playing. We used to enjoy playing on a Tuesday morning, and we didn't play many giveaway matches where you just went out and had a romp. Usually they were objective, the training matches, and we used to enjoy them, and the other team could have been Ireland, Scotland or Wales. You went out there and you were playing against your best friends, and you played as though they were your enemies. But that's just how it was. Even when I was playing as a guest during the wartime, I enjoyed football. And three sides of the ground were empty completely. There was only people sitting in their main stand. And you made contacts and friendships, and you know, all these things were things that mattered. No, I wouldn't have wanted it any different.
I think that's great. I think it's nice to be able to look back on something like that, isn't it?
I mean, when we first came here, it was 30 years ago, and we had 10 years, didn't we? It was just great. But then there was this silly split on the board, and even now I've no regrets that it happened, but it seemed to me to be an awful way to end what had been a great 10 years. I mean, if at the beginning of the 10 years somebody had said, Leicester will do this and this and this and this, people would say, don't talk rubbish. But they did it. They did it. And of course today, the friendships that we formed, like the Frank McLintocks and the Davy Gibsons and all these, although we're not seeing them every day and living in each other's pockets, the fact is that the old ties are there, and when you meet each other, it's as though the in-between times haven't happened. We called on Davy Gibson just a week ago. He just lives over in Enderby, and he was away for the weekend. And we just left a message that we'd called. And he was on the phone the next morning, he was back, wasn't he? And that's how it's been. And I never go near the city ground now, but that's of no account, you know.
When Charlton are back at the Valley, no doubt they'll have some kind of invitation to ex-players, like they did when they left. Will you be there?
I don't know. I have to say I don't know, because there's an invitation in there for me to go to that. I think it's the one you were talking about.
The last match.
And I didn't go. And I couldn't give you a reason why I didn't go. I just didn't go. I know. Yes, I think you should go.
Well, they've got to get planning permission. You've got to get back there first. But
Yes.
Yes, but I think you should go, because Charlton mattered to me, and although all the old faces are not still there.
But the only one there that you would know would be Derek Cup,
Oh, no, Derek Cup.
He's the only one out of anyone who has had any long-term connection with the club who's left.
You see, he came when I was finishing. Derek Cup, not you, well, of course. I've met him since quite a bit when went down to Plymouth on one occasion, and he came round to see us. Was it Plymouth? I think it must have been. He was something to do.
He was
something to do with Plymouth?
he was assistant to Malcolm Allison at Plymouth.
Was he?
After he
Well,
finished
that
at
would probably be it.
before Malcolm
He
Allison.
came round to tell
because
where we
then
were staying.
Malcolm Allison got into trouble, didn't he, with young boys or
There's
something like that.
That's strange. Malcolm
And
Allison
they-
got into trouble.
But he's just he's back with Fisher Athletic now.
Was
in,
funny.
in Surrey Docks, you know. So
Malcolm, the time when I was telling you about we beat them 4-2, Manchester City down here, I was in the office. Well, it was in the auditorium, you know, not the auditorium.
Where's this at Leicester?
The outer office at Leicester when he was leaving. Oh, and he was up to here, you know. And he turned back, and we were all
so much easier than making notes.
no, but I mean those particular.
Oh, the
tapes,
TDK
quite
ones,
good
yeah.
tapes,
I always
yeah.
always stick with these ones.
Yeah.
These red ones or the blue ones. Anyway.
Well, you know, they raised a certain amount. It gave us a few bob more, and I don't think I can't remember the actual amount, but obviously it was always very acceptable. But you know, in today's terms, it was laughable, and it was just, as I say, the early beginnings. Teams who went to the cup final after that, they sort of made a fortune out of it. I mean, you just had to be in one cup final, and there was a fortune in it for just getting there. But that, you know, that angle never occurred to me at all. It was just one of those things that somehow wasn't of any appeal to me. It was just the game, the playing of the game. I suppose I was silly, really, in that sense, that you've got to be practical, and it paid the bills. But at the same time, you know, the football was the only thing that mattered. So, in that sense, I was a sort of chip off Jimmy C. That's maybe why I appreciated him so much.
And also on the cup final day, Billy Whittaker became a father.
Yes, I seem to remember something like that. I can't actually remember, but I seem to remember something like that. There were lots of these little things. There was always something happening.
Yeah. What about because you paraded the cup through the streets?
Well, there again, I seem to remember us doing that, but it was a sort of half-baked type of thing. I don't know whether we had a double-decker bus or anything like that. I think it was one of Lewis's ordinary coaches. You know, we half did it, and the local population half enthused, but mainly mothers and kids, just to see the kids didn't run in front of the bus. But it wasn't like a homecoming like Liverpool, or like we had here in Leicester when we came back here, and we were up on the balcony of the town hall, and the town hall square's packed, jam-packed. Wasn't like that. I don't know whether Charlton fans just didn't respond to these things, or thought they had something better to do.
Maybe they just expected the team to win the cup.
Or maybe it wasn't an opportune time, I don't know. I just can't remember. You know, there are lots of these sort of things that I don't think they registered with me.
But you became captain. Who did you follow? Did you
Don
follow
Welsh.
You followed Don Welsh.
But then Don Welsh eventually came back. He came back at the semi-final of the cup. That was it the first year or the second year? Second year, maybe.
Newcastle's
Second year. That's right. Yes, Newcastle was the game, and obviously he took over again. But I found the difficulties arising. We've seen it emphasised in the tests just recently. If David Gower had been captaining Australia, and Alan Border had been captaining England,
different story.
It would have been a different story, yes. So that, you know, captaining a team that's on the wane, you can't expect to make good all the deficiencies.
Mm.
You can't do it just by captaincy.
Mm.
A captain can be inspiring, he can be instructive, he can do the right things in the right places and all that, but he can't make up for all that the team lacks.
Mm.
And he just has to do the best. Same as a manager, he has to do the best with what's at his disposal, especially when it comes to team selection.
Mm.
You can only pick the kind of team that is there to be picked. I know mistakes are made, and sometimes people pull rabbits out of hats, but it isn't the thing you do on a regular basis.
Mm. So
that you find yourself either in the happy position of having a team equipped to do the job, a team that is a team that can be captained, or you have a team that is always going to fall short in spite of anything you might do.
Mm. Did Jimmy C tend to stick with one captain until something bad went, because Jimmy Oates was captain
yes,
for a long time,
yes,
wasn't he?
that's right.
And Don Welsh was captain for
That's
a
right.
number of years.
Well, when Jimmy Oakes was captain, you see, they went from success to success to success in lower divisions.
Mm.
He was only the 1 year in the first division, Jimmy Oakes, and he had a good team. And then there was the wartime lapse, and then the after war, as you know, and as far as I remember, Don Welsh was always the captain after the war until he was injured.
Mm.
And as I say, I was captain after that, and then he came
Did Jimmy
back.
C tell you were captain, or did he ask you to be captain?
Oh no, he just sort of said, I would like, and that meant you had to. You know, he didn't brook any protests or anything like that.
Mm.
But your instinct tells you what your experience is going to be as a captain. If you are ready to be a captain, your judgment leads you to make certain assessments.
Mm-hmm.
And while, again, you haven't got a crystal ball, you know that if you win anything, or even win the majority of matches, you'll be doing miracles. And it's a very big weight on your shoulders, as David Gowers found.
Did you enjoy it? Right
You enjoy it, but I never revelled in it, if you understand. I don't know, you could possibly be captain of a team that carries all before it, and really speaking, you haven't a lot to do.
Because in theory, a wing half is one of the busiest men on the field anyway, because you're filling in attack and defence.
That's right.
So you've got your work
at least,
already.
At least, though, you're always at the centre of what's happening. You're always in touch with what's happening.
Yeah.
But I think Sam would have liked to have been captain. And I don't think he would have made a bad captain, Sam, because, I mean, for a goalkeeper, I don't say that disparagingly, he knew the game and he knew what was required. And sometimes they're in a very strategic position, though I wouldn't by choice have a goalkeeper as captain. I wouldn't say I never would. But Sam, I think he would have liked to have been captain, but Jimmy Seed I don't think would have had a goalkeeper as captain. Although I think he did at some time or other, but it was after Jimmy Seed, wasn't it? Am I wrong in that? Was it during Jimmy Trotter's time? Did Sam captain the team? I'm not sure.
Sam
Maybe
captains the team once, or at least once.
Sam loved the centre stage.
Yeah.
He was a showman, you know, in every sense. I mean, if you have photographs, unless they're sort of formal photographs with the goalkeeper in the middle at the back, Sam's in the middle at the front. You know, that's how it was. Sam just was Sam, and he was always prominent. And this is how he viewed life, and this is what he liked.
And adored by the fans as well.
Yes, that's right. But he would have loved to have been captain. But the time I ceased to be captain, after Don Welsh finished, was when I was telling you I had this problem with the stomach, and to this day, mind, if anything ever went wrong with me, and I'm talking about since, it was always something that affected my stomach. Now, I'm not a doctor's man at all. I don't go to the doctor very often, but when I did go to the doctor, and when I did have examinations, it was usually within the compass of the club where I was, and I used the club doctor, and none of them ever could put a finger on anything.
So at Charlton would have been Dr. Montgomery?
Dr. Montgomery. And he sent me to the Shooters Hill Hospital. I had x-rays. I had all sorts of things, but I remember one year we were going on tour, I don't know where it was to, and I said to Jimmy Trotter, Jimmy, I feel that, you know, I oughtn't to go. I could be a liability, and I said, maybe if I just spend, it was the end of the season, if I just spend the summer at home trying to pull myself together, I might be ready for August again. No, he said, you're coming with us. He said, maybe the warm climate would do you good. And whether it was the warm climate, it did pick me up. It really picked me up to go on this tour. And I started playing on a more regular basis again. Now, in the meantime, I'd played an odd game in the reserves, just to see if I could, you know, I was always wanting to play, this was the thing. And I picked the best time I could have played in the reserves. We won the combination. Now, I hadn't played many games, obviously, but the games I played earned me a cup medal, and nobody was, I didn't know I'd won one. They sent for me to go into the office, and I went into the office, and they said, here's your medal. I said, what for? And they said, we're in the combination. And I didn't think I'd played anything like enough games. So while I was at Charlton, I won everything that the club won. You know.
Very fortunate.
Fluke.
What about superstitions? Were there any players in the team or yourself that you can recall, any routines they would always go through before matches?
Well, I don't think there were superstitions. I think it was just habits. Like people would put their stockings and boots on before we put anything else on. or those silly sort of things. You know? But I can't in particular remember anything.
Yeah. In the dressing room, the pegs were numbered.
Yeah.
But did the numbers correspond to your shirt?
Yes.
So you didn't have your own peg, irrespective of position you played?
On a match day, you had your own peg, because your kit was all put out for you, and the shirts were hung so that the numbers were showing. So I'm playing number 4 or number 6, I go to number 4 or number 6, that's my place. But I just can't remember. I think the pegs numbered round went on from the one dressing room to the other, and where one left off, the other started, so that every player had his own club number as opposed to his position number. But all the clubs, wherever you went, they always set their shirts out around goalkeeper, full-backs, so on.
Yeah. So you didn't be sort of stripping in order.
That's right, yes.
Playing on the field.
Yes.
What about training? What was the sort of training routine?
Well, of course, I saw a lot of different types of training later on. I can only say our training was hard work. We trained the hard way. It was always slogging. We didn't get too much of the ball. I always believed that it was possible for some players to get enough ball in the week to satisfy their appetites, so that on a Saturday they didn't want it. That was a philosophy with a lot of people in those days. But in the main, we did what was just hard work. We got fit the hard way. We did distance running, we did lapping, we did sprinting, and we did it in a sustained way. We would run down one side, walk round the end, run up the other side, And we'd do this for ages, and every now and again Jimmy Trotter would come out and just have a peep at us. Well, I don't know what other clubs did in those days, but subsequently, when I was with Leicester in particular, the trainers were always with the players, controlling and directing the training. And
so Jimmy Trotter wasn't always there where it occurred? There weren't,
well, he was
someone there.
He was probably treating injuries, you see, and he would just pop out from treating injuries. I don't know whether Don Welsh ever told you. I told him, and I think he remembered. I mentioned it in the letter I wrote to him. But one Sunday morning, after Don had been off quite a time, and it was his little daughter was quite a small baby in the big pram, you know. Sunday morning I had to go in, a rare thing for me to be injured. I went in injured for a little bit of treatment. And Don was in, and he was down really to start doing a little bit of training. So Jimmy Trotter had the lamp on my ankle, would be my ankle, because it was the only thing that ever went wrong, apart from my stomach. He went out, and he came back in right away, and he said, "Hey, let me put the lamp off. Come out here and have a look." I wondered what was wrong. Thought he'd discovered something. And you'll never believe it, but Don was out there with his training kit on, pushing the pram round the track. Walking, obviously. He's supposed to be down there training, and he's walking round with the pram. That's as true as I'm here. I told him about it in the letter when you gave me his address. Yeah. And Don speaks disparagingly about Jimmy Trotter. He thinks Jimmy Trotter did him some disservice.
He complains about his knee, doesn't he?
I don't know.
He says that he could end up with very bad cartilage problems and arthritis, and he says that Jimmy Trotter knew it needed an operation, but he kept playing him on it. That's what Don says. He feels a bit bitter about it.
Well, he would know that better than I, because I have no knowledge of anything like that. I can only speak of, you all only can speak as you knew people, and I had a great deal of time for Jimmy Trotter. It seemed to me that he knew everything that was necessary to know about his job, and he was a great chap to play under. You know, he'd been a player himself. He was sympathetic towards players in the sympathetic sense.
He was England trainer as well, wasn't he?
Afterwards, yes, that was.
Famous man he was doing. I mean, some of the players I've met said he was a marvel.
Yes, I would say Jimmy Trotter was a great trainer. Obviously, everything has to be seen in the context of its day. There are a lot of things that might be better now, although I can't think of many things that seem to be better, but then I'm not among it. I'm certain there are lots of things that were better in our day than they are today. As far as I'm concerned personally, I wouldn't have preferred to play in this day, not because it's harder, maybe it is physically in some senses, but I never think it could be any more hard work than it was in our day.
Do you think maybe the level of fitness is a lot higher now than it was in your time?
I don't know. I don't know. It's easy to say these things. I think probably the players are trained better technically, but very often they're trained by people who are untrained as trainers. That is to say, you'll get people who'll stand up in front of a squad and slog them to death, and say, well, if you're not fit now, you never will be, and they've probably done them as much harm as good. You know what I mean? Yeah. There has to be a knowledge of physical training, and some of us learned in the RAF how little we knew about real physical training. Technical physical training, you know, and it isn't just a case of slogging at everything and doing things the hard way.
There's subtleties to it as well, isn't there?
Well, there's knowledge, there's understanding, and there's also the understanding that all men are not one man, that all of us are uniquely different, and it's essential that we are known as individuals, and that can be a difficult thing. It can look sometimes that you're treating players as flesh and fowl. I've had Davy Gibson at Leicester, not in training, but in coaching, because we had trainers to train and coaches to coach. And I've had Davy Gibson doing certain things that the others weren't doing. Because what they were doing was of no advantage to him. And we would sort people out. For the first time that I could ever think, at Leicester, the goalkeepers were separated from the other players when the other players were doing things that were of no consequence to the goalkeepers. So the goalkeepers wanted to be doing specialised work, and that's what we did. And we put a great deal of thought into it. Now, I think perhaps we, in the 60s, put a lot more thought into what we were doing in preparation for what we were doing than was done in the old days. The old days were just a resumption of pre-war days. It was just picking up the loose ends again.
With many of the same players.
But this fell foul, in my estimation, around the end of the 60s, when characters came in who were all theorists, and somehow they seemed to swamp the game. And what I believe happened, and I believe this implicitly, because I've been present, what they call the place up in Lillishall. I went there with Jock Steen and Matt Gillis. Jock Steen came and spent a week with us because he'd heard, this was when he was at Celtic, and although they were winning matches, they won the league, 10 times was it, some ridiculous number. He'd heard from somebody that a week with us, or a time with us, would be beneficial. Not for him to learn, but just to look and see. And he came and he stayed, and we went to Lillishall in the midweek, Wednesday. What did they call that coach? He was a Hungarian coach. Anyway, you know the chap I mean. Everybody thought he was marvellous, and quite honestly, it was just that he had a way of putting things over, but he wasn't telling people anything that people at that level shouldn't have known. He wasn't telling them anything, and he was making them laugh. He was just one of those personalities. He could put it over, and they couldn't argue with what he was saying because you know, it was all, in a sense, basic stuff. And as I say, anybody who came away and revelled in what he said, they shouldn't have been there in the first place, because they should have known it before they ever went there.
Yeah, of course.
And I wouldn't take anything away from him, but he was getting money for all the rope. But we came away, and I can remember us now, there was David Jones as well, who was one of our trainers, the four of us went, and we came back and we laughed our socks off at some of the things. And you had players, Joe Mercer, he was never away from Lillishall. He virtually lived there, and he was, by this time, you know, on crutches nearly. And he would take part in everything. He liked to be one of the boys, you know, Joe. Great fellow, old Joe, you know. He was a nice fellow, actually. But I remember us laughing at this, you know. And we came back and would see nothing that would have been contributory to anything that we had to be responsible for. Nothing. But you see, Malcolm Allison, he was there, and he loved this sort of thing. I think it was always people who were sort of wanting to express themselves. You know, I had a lot of time for Malcolm. He would tell you, as a boy, incidentally, I met him that day. I went to see Millwall play Coventry. He was doing a little bit for a North East paper, But Malcolm was one of these unrestrained characters. He liked to be, he was a bit like Sam, he liked to be a forefront man.
Well,
I think
very flamboyant, isn't he?
Yes, that's why Jimmy Seed, that was what Jimmy Seed had against him. But I always doubted, I think Jimmy Seed heard something about Malcolm Allison, or somebody reported Malcolm Allison. This is pure supposition, really. But something coloured the water as far, because he was a good, young, promising centre half.
Derek Afton, because Malcolm Allison was responsible.
That was another time. I said to Jimmy Seed one day, I paid Malcolm Allison and Albert Ayton Bogart compliments. It was a weekend when I'd played in the reserves, just as a tryout, and Malcolm Allison played centre half, and Albert Ayton Bogart played goalkeeper, and we beat West Ham. I don't know now, but you'd have to look it up in the records, either 9 or 10. And I said, obviously, winning that score, goalkeeper and centre half don't have too much to do they? But I said to Jimmy Seed, again, like I'd said before, something to their advantage, and he said to me, "You leave team selection to me, Bert." I wasn't picking them, but he just put me in my place, you know. I had a lot of time for Malcolm. Oh, he was good. I think what he was a funny chap, Jimmy Seed. He belonged to his age, his era, and
which was what, 20s, wasn't it, really?
Yes, he was the kind of man who'd never changed. And Albert Ayton Bogart married a widow. She wasn't an old person, but older than him. She could have been 10 years older. I can't remember now. But she was still a young woman, because he was quite a young man. And he went back to South Africa, but I think he wouldn't have gone if he'd been given any indication that there was a future for him at Charles. Because I thought he was a superb goalkeeper.
Because you were there as the South Africans began to arrive. Sid O'Lynn was there.
The first two, Dudley Forbes and Sid O'Lynn. Then the others came in 2s and 3s, Eddie Fermani and Stuart Leary. And they all had something about them. John Huey, good player, John Huey. Yes, they all had.
It was strange, this sort of regional sort of
But you see,
plundering that Jimmy sees.
there was a chap called Keane, Eric Keane. He was a wing half before the war. He played for Derby County, and he went to South Africa. He emigrated, and he was the one who got in touch with Jimmy Seed. I don't know on what basis, but he got in touch with Jimmy Seed of all people, and that's how they started arriving. And I tell you what, there were no failures came over. They weren't always all going to make it, but there were no failures. They were all ball-wise. You know, like the Australians, they could play anything where a ball was involved.
Yeah.
The good cricketers, good golfers.
It was, yes, someone was telling me, Joe Merriweather. I don't know if you knew Joe Merriweather.
Know the name?
His father was involved with the founding of the club. And
Know
his
the
son, he
name.
was there as he was probably a teenager after the war. He must be about 60 now, probably. But he knew Stuart Leary very well. He was very good friends with Stuart Leary. And Joe played tennis. And apparently one day Stuart said to Joe, I'd like to learn to play tennis. And Joe Merriweather said, without a word of a lie, within half an hour he could play the game.
Yeah.
He had such a good eye for the ball.
Yeah, that's right. They had this. And they used to do some ridiculous things, really, though understandable things. After all, they were just young men. And they would tee a golf ball up just where the players come out and have arguments as to which of them could hit it up the far terracing and over into those allotments. Yeah. Another one was an argument as to who could throw a cricket ball out of one goal mouth and they had to have one foot back over the goal line, out of one goal mouth, over into the other goal without a bounce. And they did it.
They did it, I'm sure.
I don't mean they all did it. Norman Nielsen, great, lanky, lithe character, he was good at these sort of things. But he was a wild man, Norman Nielsen.
In what way?
He was tremendous in an athletic sense. You might say he was daft enough to have been an Australian, but you know, he'd attempt anything. Nothing worried him. And Polly Kirsten, who was always a wag, incidentally, we're still in touch with Polly Kirsten.
Really?
He used to get Norman, you know, he had a drawl, dry sort of way. And he would talk as though he was taking you into his confidence, and all the time he was egging you on. You know. And he would say to Norman, that's some hedge. It'd be the hedge of somebody's front garden, you see. That's some hedge going up, Norman. Even you couldn't jump that. And all the time Norman half a step behind, fastening his jacket, you know. Next thing he's jumped the hedge. Somebody's front garden. This is true, literally true.
That's amazing.
Ah, dear. Honestly, there's never, ever a dull moment. It was ever so funny.
Well, we've been talking for a long time, haven't we?
Yeah, I wish anything.
Well, I don't know. I don't think so. You keep mentioning your photographs, so I'd very much like to.
Well, I can
see them.
find some. I don't know that they're all there because they haven't been saved as souvenirs. They've been just stuck away in a cupboard. I'll get them down. But you know, all these things are peripheral.
Well, that's what I'm interested in because I'm not writing the official history of the club. I'm writing a social history, which is the story of the people within the club, be it the players, the supporters, the workers, the police.
That's right.
So I just want to try and build up some kind of image of the atmosphere and how it changed over the years, and how it progressed over the years. Yesterday I spoke to this chap called Fred Budden. His father, Sam Budden, was their first trainer in 1905, 06, and Fred's now 87. And he was taken down when he was 3 years old when Charlton Athletic were first playing, and then Charlton Athletic. Fascinating talking to him about
who was a star way back, and I'm not talking about before the war, but before the war as well. He wouldn't get into some teams today. I mean, the player I'm thinking of wouldn't get into Wimbledon team or anything like that. The type of player I'm talking about belonged to his particular era. The Alec Jameses, the Davy Gibsons, Douglas, who played for Blackburn Rovers, skillful players, you know. What they call the little fellow who played inside forward for Arsenal, Logie, Jimmy Logie. They really were on the smaller side. There were skill players. If they were in a game that had other ingredients than skill, they might as well have stayed in the dressing room, because and yet these people, they were the characters who influenced the game because of their skill and because of the other players around them turning their skill to good effect. I mean, Davy Gibson at Leicester City, he was fantastic, and he was a man like Alec James who could hit a ball from defensive areas that put you on the attack at the other end. I mean, it was a known ploy, and yet people couldn't stop it. That he would somehow contrive to get a ball up to Mike Stringfellow at Leicester, who had a heart as big as this, and he would carry it, as Gordon Hurst would have carried it in our day. He would carry it right to where the business end was, and this was in 2 moves, virtually. Well, you know, there's always room for players who can do these specialised things. But you see, they've been scripted to such an extent that they don't even think for themselves.
Well, Paul Gascoigne is probably quite a good
That's
point
right.
here, because the England game was before the summer, wasn't it, where he came on, he shot, he scored a couple of goals.
Yes, yes.
And then afterwards, Bobby Robson was saying, oh, well, he's got the talent, but he's a bit wild.
That's
okay,
right.
he's wild. I mean,
That's
you saw
right.
that in the
Yes.
match just the other week, if you saw
Yes.
that when he got in the tangle, and then
That's
immediately
right.
he was seeing red, he just
Yes.
tried to go through all the way, but then he lost the ball. But he, you know, Robson says he needs to be tamed, he needs to be more coaching, what have you. But, you know, and the question that was put to Bobby Robson about this is a perfectly fair question. Well, is his skill going to be coached out of him? Is his ingenuity and his
that's the
individuality?
first thing the spectator thinks about.
Mm.
But it also presupposes that everybody is coachable, and they're not.
Mm.
Now,
They are to a certain
there are
degree,
two-
though, surely.
well, you might say you can rub the corners off some, but some of them are always going to be what you call a rough diamond. Whether they are diamonds is another matter. Maybe they can do certain things on certain occasions, but maybe they can't do them often enough to make it profitable. What I was going to say, just in general terms, is that there are really two factors that have to be intertwined. One is instinct, flair, call it what you will. It's instinct, it's something that is animal in us.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about being an animal and cutting the other fellow ribs, you know what I mean by that. The human,
instinctiveness born
the
with.
human
Yeah.
instinct.
Yeah.
You can't be taught to do these things. If you haven't got it instinctively, nobody can put it there. All the coaches in the world wouldn't put it there. The other thing is, what's the word?
Understanding.
Well, it is. That's what it is, but that's in the word I want. Oh, it's funny how these things go from me. But the two things. One weighs things up and considers things and makes judgment on these things. And the other is something you don't have time to make judgments. You do it, and afterwards you realise you've done it. Like selling a man a dummy. It's just something that's grown up with you. You haven't time to think, but you've done it, and it's successful, and you can do it again, and will do it again, and people score goals in that same way.
So it suddenly becomes second nature.
It's in the net before they realise almost what they've done.
Yeah.
Now the two things must be there in the right proportions. Not lopsided, but in the right proportions. And this is what you strive to do. You strive to get a balance between a man's ability to assess a position and make judgment on a position and his instinct. And you have to have room for the two. And obviously it's going to work out better if you can make him aware that these two things exist. Otherwise he's going to be all one or all of the other if somebody doesn't tell him. You don't grow up knowing these things. You know, I mean, sometimes you have to tell a player what he can do. You have to sum him up because he can't sum himself up and say, now this is an asset that you've got, and you know, you must continue doing this. But there are certain things that reduce your abilities, and these are the things we've got to try and keep out of the way, not indulge in. And one way and another, and this doesn't come overnight. You can't tell him today and tomorrow he does it. You've got to work on it and work on it. And you see this in the cricket, don't you? Where these cricketers who've been making blatant mistakes with the bat particularly.
Oh, Gower got bowled.
Well, that's
Just
right.
hung his bat up,
That's
thinking the ball was going way past the wicket. He just
Now,
went straight
now,
in,
you,
kicks him in the
now
stump
you'd
home.
say a novice wouldn't do that. I mean, at least a novice would have a slash at them. But you see, this is the type of thing. And people think that once you've got a player doing these things, he's always got it. But it isn't true. They can lapse. And you're never finished. They say a woman's work is never done while a coach's is never done. And these are the reasons that you're working with human beings.
Yeah.
And while some human beings, once you've told them they've got it, you have to tell other people every day the same things. It's just because we're all different. And it's so important. Now as a player, this sort of thing doesn't concern you. It never crosses your mind. You don't think of all the problems that the coaches or the trainers might have, or the manager. You don't think of those problems because it doesn't concern you. All you want to do is get out there with the ball. But you see, if you can channel a person's assets to the best of their ability, then you're going to have a better player than a man who wastes half of his energies.
I mean, that one instant with Gascoigne, where he saw red and he went like a bull in a china shop with the ball and lost the ball, which is something that a professional shouldn't do. They shouldn't react like that. Well, he should still have had an element of coolness in his head, power to reason, to see that what he was doing was wrong.
Well, the man I was talking about, the chairman at Newcastle, when he left Newcastle, he said something to that effect about Gascoigne, didn't he?
Did he?
He says a genius with no brains. Meant he was a genius in his feet, but no brains. Yeah. And as much as said he never will have. But Stan Seymour.
Right.
I couldn't remember his name before. I'll go and get this photograph.
Right.